So one of the things that I think that we need to talk about is a little bit about the prerequisites. Like so the prerequisites are for this to work, you have to have a portfolio. It's got to have like business projects on it that you can show. And that's like it doesn't work if you don't have that. And so we talk about showing business projects, and we're going to show you how we can use those. The other thing is you got to have a laptop to demo, man. Like, so
yeah,
you
don't show off without the machine, because that's a big part of this too. The whole goal is to take control of the interview, and we'll get to that kind of topic. But without having the actual machine to show it on, don't rely on showing up to some place and then sort of being able to pull up the internet and show it on the screen. Like, be prepared.
Right. Be prepared. And so, like, if your laptop is slow, then make sure that thing's already booted before you get into the machine. The last thing you want to do is, hey, can I show you my portfolio? And then it goes through an 8-minute boot up sequence, and
you want this thing like ready to roll.
Laptop,
Yeah. It's not only having it, it's literally making it ready to roll. Like, it's got to be powered on. You got to be at the right place. You got to be ready to go. To talk about and use this technique for it to be super effective. Because you're right, if you get in there and you spend like 5 minutes, you're like, oh, hold on, my laptop's just powering up. They're going to move on, and they're going to come back to their question list, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And they're going to, you're going to lose control of the interview.
That, man. Don't worry about that. You lose control. The second thing is with remote, this even becomes more powerful because now you have a screen to display to. So, but if you're interviewing in person, sometimes you can hook into their monitor or their projector overhead, but don't rely on that. Just, kind of make sure that you're ready to show it just on your laptop if you can. The final thing is, I think, is this makes it so much easier if the stacks that you built your portfolio in align with the job. It's not always the case. I mean, we've had people leave here with a .NET portfolio and get hired into a PHP role. What we're saying is, if you want to maximize your opportunities, you really want to kind of like push this to the limit, build something in .NET and go to .NET jobs, build something in React, look for React jobs. And
we've also had somebody ask us as well, like we've talked about that before, and we've had somebody say, well, I know .NET and I know C#, but I'm interviewing for a PHP job. Should my portfolio be in PHP? And our answer to that is, well, yeah, you should probably have a PHP project on there. You should probably do a little, you're going to this, like at least do a PHP project to show that you can pick it up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I know that seems like a lot. It's like, exactly. Yeah, and it seems like that's like, wow, okay, so I'm going to have like 15 portfolios in every stack. Well, no, that comes down to how you apply for jobs, right? So you just have to make sure that it comes back to our overarching sort of thing that we talk about is aligning your portfolio with where you're applying and doing the research in your market to make sure that your portfolio is in the right stack in the first place, and you won't come across this.
Yeah. So the other question we commonly get on this, and the pushback we get on every time we talk about this, Kevin, is, well, what about FANG companies? And so, like, is this going to work at Google? Is this going to work at Facebook, Bobby? There's no way that I could interview with Mark Zuckerberg and let him see my portfolio. And here's what I'll say, 2 thoughts on this. A, I've never interviewed at a FANG company, okay? I've been blessed to just run my own deal. And so, but having said that, if you feel like Google has an interview process, it's definitely something that you can go look at. You can go to websites and find out what their current interview process is. And you can tailor your technique to this. However, if you're wanting to work and you're outside the US, I'm telling you right now, not all the jobs are in FANG companies. There's a lot of them in FANG companies, but it's not there. So like, it's not like the only place to work here is Google. In fact, the vast majority of the dev jobs aren't in FANG.
I was going to say, I go one step further, not just say the majority, I would say the vast majority are not. It is a very small group of developers that work at FANG companies compared to the larger market.
Right. And so if you're a junior just trying to break in, I think your target shouldn't necessarily be those top 5. But with Microsoft, we've had people leave here the boot camp and go to Microsoft, and they've went through something called the LEAP program. And so that's another avenue to get in. And so, but excluding FANG, I do believe this too. These techniques will work at a FANG company too. Even if they have their own kind of interview process, it is possible to show your work to them. And I think that can set you apart above other people.
Just because it's something that, just because you something that you feel like is set in stone and they do have their process. I think you said this perfectly once in one of our other videos, that at the end of the day, you're talking with a human being, and a human being, if you can use some of these techniques and show them this stuff, they're going to be interested. Because trust me, not everybody shows up for an interview at Google with a portfolio and the willingness to actually talk about code and show it. They don't. They're not used to seeing it. So we're not saying that it will work, but we're saying that you may be able to use some of these techniques in applying with FANG companies. Right. But ultimately, if you want to work at a FANG company, which somebody asked us in the questions, is there's a million different ways to figure that part out. Like if you want to go work at Google specifically, there is literally a book written on how to work at Google. There are a million YouTube videos from people who have interviewed at Google that'll tell you exactly how that interview goes. You need to go and tailor it exactly to that. But you're putting all your eggs in one basket when you do that. You better be a rock star to get that job.
Yeah, another thing too is what I would say is if you're going to interview at one of the FANG companies, just go on Twitter, LinkedIn, and try to connect with people that work there and see if you can get an in that way. And I think that's another kind of, and this goes beyond what we're talking about today. That's more networking side of this job hunt. And this is once you get an interview, what do you do? But so FANG isn't all be all and end all. It's not everything, but it's a nice feather in your hat. I mean, absolutely, man. If you go work at Microsoft or Google or Facebook, I mean, that's kind of hot, Kevin. I mean, like it's cool.
It is totally. I mean, somebody's going to see that on your resume, and they're going to think that's prestigious for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely, it does mean something. You could start a YouTube channel and be tech lead.
Exactly.
That's I mean that it happens. But yes, it is prestigious, and it does have a thing around it. But don't put all your eggs in one basket. It is. It's not the be all and end all of being a developer. Maybe it can be your goal, and that's something you need to work towards, but there's a specific set of interview criteria you're going to have to complete to get into those companies, and these techniques probably won't work for that, is what we're saying.
Yeah. But I don't think it hurts to try. And I definitely think anything under that's not the FANG companies, this absolutely works.
Yep.
100%. Yep. So if you're interviewing someone that doesn't have like this famous interview process, then this absolutely will work. So first off, you got to have a portfolio of apps, and that's mission critical. Number one, you got to have a way to demo it. And if your stack aligns with the job, that's bonus points.
Yep. So you got to have the laptop.
Yeah, you got to have the laptop. So that's got to be fast. All right, so let's go right into step one. Or any questions or anything like that yet? Or
no, I think we're good. What we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about this for probably the first half of the show here, and then we're gonna jump into Q&A afterwards. So we will do a Q&A. So put the questions in chat, and I will get to them. Or if you want to hold them until sort of bottom of the hour time, we'll do that too. So and here we go.
You can always comment too. If you got a good comment, we may pick it up.
There's your first tip. Smash that button. I appreciate it, 808 High Vibes. You're the one that always reminds me to talk about that. I forget to talk about that. But yes, if you could like the video, that would be awesome. We would very much appreciate it. I think what do we have? What do we have here right now? 40-something people, 50 people.
All right, cool.
We only have 14 likes. So I'd love if we had more likes. That would be great.
You get 40 likes, right?
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Come on.
We got our one down vote, though. We did get our one down vote.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's get to so this is sort of what we're going to talk about now is our framework for doing this. This is really 3 steps. Yeah. So what's step number 1?
Step 1's called the open. And I want you to approach every interview process like you're selling something. So if you've ever been in sales, you've got an opening statement that you need to make. So the first thing you do is thank them for their time. And the reason you do this is to build rapport with the person right away, compliment them on the company, thank them for their time, for giving you the opportunity to interview with them. And then your opening statement is this: hey, you know what? I would really love to work here, but for order for us to see if I'm a good fit for the organization, would you take time before we get started to look at my portfolio and let me show you some of the projects I've been working on? And I think that's the best way to determine if I can really work here or not. And the answer to that question is either yes or no. And if it's a yes, you roll right into your demo, you show them your projects, and you should be golden at that point. If they say no, which is very possible, don't get discouraged. Open up that laptop and get ready to demo, because once we go into step 2, we'll show you how you're going to use this.
Yeah, so I think the important part here is obviously just being generally courteous and thanking them for their time. Standard kind of interview stuff, but just being, just being a good human being and just being nice is gonna go a long way. And then you talked about this a little bit, but expressing interest in the work that they're doing or the job that they've posted or the company, be like, wow, hey, I love what you guys are doing here. I've researched your product. I think it's great. I like the stack that you're working in. I guess just be complimentary and overall just be interested in what they're doing. It's going to come across, but make sure it's genuine too. You don't want to be fake over it. Make sure you have done your research and you know actually what they're doing. And you know the kind of company that they are, and maybe you've read a little bit about their company culture, and you could say something about that, like, "Wow, I love the culture here. I love the building, whatever it is," something like that. It's going to make you memorable.
Yeah, and generally, people like to work with people they like.
100% they do.
It's real easy to be likable up front, even if you've met someone in the beginning by complimenting them. It's just it's a natural thing to do. These aren't like Jedi mind tricks. It's just human nature.
It is. Yep.
So
definitely.
I think you can help push this in your favor when they think you're a nice person.
And I think so here's what happens is that, and you talked about this a little bit, but getting into the demo part, the point of this is what's going to happen is, and you've all been there, if you've ever been on a job interview, you've been there, right? You sit down opposite the person, and that lady or that guy will ask you, they have a sheet of paper in front of them, and and you know what's on that sheet of paper. You're going for a technical interview, right? You know what's on that paper, right? They've literally pulled down the top 20 questions for whatever stack you're going to be interviewing in, and they're going to go down the list. And this technique is going to fix that for you because you don't want to answer those questions. You don't want to answer all of them.
The term we use is called code trivia. It's like being on Jeopardy, and the Jeopardy board is all C# questions. And you allow Alex Trebek, God rest his soul, but you ask him to let him just dictate all the questions to you, and you got to answer. What I want you to do is get rid of the Jeopardy board in its entirety and dictate the questions they will ask you by what they see on your screen. And that's what we want to, step one, is controlling the interview by getting them to look at a demo. And that's all. That's our goal. That's your overarching goal. I need them to see my demo, however they get there. And then if you get it from the opening statement, you kind of win.
Yeah. You're straight into it. If you can get it from the first,
bad and you're terrible. I mean, but you kind of win.
Yep. Okay. So that's if they say yes, that's it. You kind of move on and you go to step 3, which we'll talk about in a second, give you more details on showing your code and how to talk about your code. But if they say no, then what do you do?
So if they say no, you politely sit down and say, "Hey, thanks," like that, and you open up your laptop and you get ready to demo, because now we're going to move into what's called the redirect. So typically in a typical interview, they're going to start asking you interview style questions or the top 20 questions. And a lot of times it's a dev manager or a tech lead that's doing the interview, and they may not be professional interviews. So they don't really know what they're going to do. They just print it out, like Kevin said, the top 20 C# questions, for example. And those questions typically will start out easier to hard. And so your job is to take that first question you get, the softball. It could be, what is C#? It could be, what is MVC? And then you answer that in what we call the academic way. Oh, C# say, a high level language, or MVC is a design pattern called model view controller. And then you immediately go to a concrete answer. So the abstract or the academic answer, and then what you're going to do is then relate that to a concrete example in your code. So for example, if someone asked me, "Hey, what's C#?" I would say, it's a high level general purpose programming language. And I use C# extensively when I wrote my bug tracker. Do you want to look at that? And let me show you how I use C# to build this application. And that's your redirect. And see if you can get them to demo that way.
And the purpose of that is to, again, move away from the code trivia and move into looking at your code, because that's the point, right? The point is to come look at your code. Actually, we have a question here about this too, and I will pull this one up. Alan says, "What do you mean demo in place of coding problems?"
Okay, Alan. So that's a good question. What we're saying is you should have a portfolio of projects that you have built that's on your portfolio. And for example, we recommend building a bug tracker. And we're going to talk about that specifically in a second. But let's say that you have a bug tracker that's running on your laptop or running on Azure or running on AWS. And when someone asks you a question, like a high level question, what is C sharp? Ask them to look at this so you can demonstrate your knowledge in it. And you got to know your code backwards and forwards and what you want them to see and what you want them to show. So that's what we're talking about. And so not every interview question you get is a coding problem. A lot of times they don't break right into the whiteboard example. They don't say, hey, Bobby, welcome, come in here, grab that pen. I want to see the Fizz Buzz right now. It's not typically what happens. There's this process that takes place in the beginning where, what's your name, what do you do here? And you need to take ownership of that period and get to a demo. Because then if you get to a demo, you limit the number of questions they can ask you or will ask you. You may even bypass the whiteboard.
Right.
Because here's the thing that's funny about showing working code that I think people underestimate. If they see code that you've wrote, they assume that you've reached a certain level of expertise, and they may feel embarrassed about asking you to reverse a string on a whiteboard, or how do you do Fizz Buzz on a whiteboard, or how do you, just whatever the coding challenge is of the time. I think they may feel like, oh, this person knows what he's doing. Let's move on to some more deeper topics that he can discuss about. And I think that's when you can get it. The second thing that can happen is if your demo is really good, they may start asking you questions about your project, which is amazingly cool because if they ask them about your project, you should know the answer to that. And they're like, whoa, so how did you handle database connections? What ORM are you using? Are you using any framework? And you can say, yeah, I'm using any framework in here. And let me show you how I'm managing connections. Let me show you a link statement where I'm pulling back a list of tickets in my bug tracker.
You got to always remember that their ultimate goal as the hiring manager is to hire somebody who can code, right?
Yeah,
now, all they have is and all they have to do that. The only tools they know how to do that is to ask you these code trivia questions and see if you can answer them, right? Because then in their mind, and historically, that's like the way you would prove somebody can do the job, right? But this is a little bit different. It's skill based. Like I could like memorize the top 20 C# questions. Doesn't mean I can code. It's a much better way of proving. Right, exactly. It's a much better way of proving you can code outside of it being a whiteboard, because that's another thing. But again, even if you could memorize, you could have to have really good memory and memorize the top 20 whiteboard challenges, and chances are you're going to get one one of them. They're probably not going to deviate from the top 20. So you might get something that's very similar.
We even say, Kevin, in the Code Foundry, it's like you should know the top 30 interview questions for C# if you're interviewing for C# jobs. And you should know the answers to all of them, but you need to know what your redirect is in your code. So let's say that they ask you what MVC is, so like, hey, what is MVC? And you say, well, that's model view controller. Now I built a bug tracker, and for example, and then that's the key word I always remind students with. Remember to say the words for example, because that's a memory trigger that makes you think about how do I answer the next to that statement. And that says, oh yeah, my ticket controller. And so my ticket controller, and then you show a ticket controller that hits a database, that fills up a model of tickets. It passes that model to the view, and then you go to the view and say, and now my tickets are displayed in the view. And that's the round trip of MVC. That's so much better than talking about like model view controller at an abstract level. Now we're talking about at a concrete level. And if you're showing code, Kevin, you've turned that closed book short-term memory test into an open book test where you can just literally walk through the code, and that'll spur all the memory you need, because it's like right there in front of your face and everyone can see it, and you can too.
Yep, definitely. And Alex has a sort of a point here. She says she got fooled twice with code trivia. Simply tried to answer the question and mostly failed to find the right explanations most of the time, and then says, didn't know I should have diverted the questions into examples in my projects. So yes, that's the tip here, and this is where the for example thing comes in. As long as you remember, hey, if I'm ever going to get a technical question, a code trivia style question, always end it with for example. And then you're gonna know that's gonna be your mind trigger to push you back into being like, oh yeah, okay, so I need to give an example at the end of this question too.
Yeah.
So
now, here's the crazy thing. Here's another thing that Alex's question brought to mind. The things that can happen during a code trivia question. The guy that asked you the question could be wrong.
Right.
And so like you answer the question correctly, or what he seems incorrectly, but he's wrong. Or it's misphrased, or sometimes the code trivia questions are so specific about what they do, there's no way you could answer it. Like in other words, like he's saying, what do you do with the TPS report? And you're like, what are you talking about, man? But if you happen to be right and you get into like a discussion or an argument over architecture, design patterns, or whatever, you can blow the interview by doing that. And so what you want to do is remove all of that by demoing. And so then they can ask questions about your code and not about like their specific questions.
Yeah, because that's a lose-lose scenario, isn't it? If the guy asking or the girl asking the question is wrong and they have the wrong answer, even if your answer is correct, you lose because they're going to think you're wrong.
Exactly.
and then if you argue with the fact that their answer is wrong, then they're not going to accept. That's just bad. Okay, top interview tip: never argue with the hiring manager. Period. Even if they say blue is red, it doesn't matter. Just you just agree and move on. That's 101, right? Yeah. You just don't do that. So yeah, it's lose-lose. You got to be careful of getting caught in that catch-22. And this technique gets you away from that.
We had a senior dev here at Cortex that was interviewing for a consulting gig for us, and I remember the question came back, and he asked the senior dev, and one of the prefaces was, this senior dev may be the best programmer I've ever worked with. Exceptionally talented. They asked him what unboxing and boxing was. And for whatever reason, during that moment of time, that term just blanked on him. And he just didn't know what the term was at the time, Of course, he knows how to cast an energy to different types. Like, this is the simplest question ever. But the term or the way it was asked, he just blanked on it. And I remember getting a call back from the company and saying, what are you trying to do here? You passed this guy as a senior, and he doesn't know what unboxing was. And it's just crazy, Kevin. Right. And that's what Code Trivia can do to even senior guys, mid-level guys, and not just junior people. So I'm telling you, if you just walk in there and just start showing code and talking about it, you're such a better, stronger position.
Yep.
So that's the repeat.
Definitely.
Or the redirect.
The redirect. So that's step 2. So we've done opening, redirect. So what's the third part here? So ultimately, this is where you want to get to, whether you've jumped from opening straight to this, or you've redirected into this.
Yeah. And so just remember, you want to study the top 20 questions about your stack, and you want to have a redirect for each one of those. So what is C#? What is an interface? What is object-oriented programming? What is an overload? All of those questions that you may get in a standard C# interview or a Java interview or a JavaScript interview, you want to be able to say, how does that question relate to my project? And for example, and show them something very distinct and specific that answers that question in a meaningful way. The cool thing about interviewing over Skype, or not Skype, that's such a boomer term now. Skype. I got my Skype account out.
Mentioning Skype these days, dating yourself, that seems like such a weird concept, doesn't it? Man, Skype, what is this guy? Who's this guy? Is he on Facebook? Like,
it's on Facebook, man.
That's funny.
So that's funny. You're doing a Zoom call or you're on Teams or whatever. The thing is now they literally can't stop you from demoing. You can just like share your screen. It's really hard. Like,
you force the demo.
Rude, but you could say, someone asks you what an interface is. You know what? I've got a great example of interface right here. Let me share my screen, and bam, it's up there. And suddenly you're answering the question with Visual Studio, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that too, but we've seen that actually happen in person too. Not just on, we're talking about you can force it in Zoom or something, or whatever sharing platform, but we've seen it in person too, where this does work. They're not really, you don't, and this comes back to my overarching advice at the beginning, is be brave, right? You don't necessarily even have to ask to show your code. If you have it ready to go and you're on your laptop, you're like, right here. It's going to take a brave person on the other side to say, put that away. Because at the end of the day, it comes back to, again, my point that they just want to hire somebody who can be a developer. If you're sort of taking control and you're showing the skills and you can showing your work, it's going to be really weird if they tell you to put it away. And if they do, it's gonna be kind of weird, and they're gonna make it weird, and they're not gonna want to make it weird. So just put it out there. Start showing it. Ultimately, they just want to know you can code.
Yeah, another thing too, what the demo does, Kevin, is also gives you good insight into your soft skills. So a lot of times your soft skill is just important as your ability to code. Can this person communicate with others? Is he nice? Can he show things? Because you may be working at a company that has to demonstrate stuff to customers, or they have customers, and you may have to like talk to them, and like this is another great skill that they'll rate you on. Like, man, that guy can explain things well. He's easy to work with. He came in with projects. He's clearly prepared for the interview. Let's just give him a shot.
Exactly.
Versus the other guy that came in with his resume.
Exactly. Minimum amount. Think how much you're showing that you've prepared for the interview by coming with this piece of software that you can talk about in and out. Which we'll talk about in a second when we come to the showing part. But when you're talking about showing part, there's a few caveats to that. But think about how much better you're going to look. Even if they don't have you don't get the job you're looking at, they may be like, this guy's got something, or this girl's got something. It's worth looking at them for something.
So now I've got my next level tip, the secret one I've been hiding. This will come out in Coder Foundry in April. So the April class, you guys that are coming here on April 5th, we're going to show you this because we're going to change the way our projects are built. So in general, before we were trying to get people to look at demos, which is great. That's level one. You want to take it to the next level. I want to talk to you about this. So first and foremost is we're going to start building projects that are multi-tenant. And multi-tenant means that our bug tracker will have the ability to have multiple companies in it. So if you're interviewing for, let's say, some kind of like, Joe's Hardware, and they have a technical team back there that manages inventory. You're going to create a company inside your bug tracker called Joe's Hardware. You're going to upload their logo, and you're going to customize it a little bit to them. You're actually also going to enter in some tickets on a project, a fictional project that you're going to work on. Then you're going to build a feature in that invites people to this company to participate in the process, maybe submit a ticket, or maybe to actually close a ticket and work on it. And during that interview process, if someone asks you what MVC was, you could say, I built an app in MVC. It is a ticketing bug tracking system. Well, let me show you what I got here. And you open it up in the demo, and here's where it gets next level. You ask them for their email address, and you may already have it, and you submit a ticket request for them to join the company. They get the request on their phone. They open up the request, and it should be a quick, easy to go registration process, which typically is nothing. And immediately it takes them to the submit ticket screen. You're showing the tickets in the company, and then you say, hey, just submit a ticket there. Just write in whatever you want. And then it appears on your screen. And like magic, Kevin, you've gone from demoing to riding in the car. So there's one reason when you go to that car lot to buy a car and they show you the Mercedes, you're like, do you like red, Kevin? You're like, yeah, I love red. Do you like SUVs? I love SUVs. Well, let me go look at this red SUV. And you walk around it and you're already motivated. But they don't stop there. They say, man, would you like to take a ride in that thing? Let's take it for a spin down the road. What you've done is now they're using your app. And that's so strong. Like I can't tell people how strong that is.
You went from demo to interactive demo. You went from watching a movie to interacting in a movie. You went from movie to video game kind of thing is what you want. You went from like a still like passive thing to an active thing.
Right. Now, what I just said is a registration process that you see all the time. They register people through what we call passwordless registration, which is like I send you a magic link and you just click on it and it takes you right to the site. There's no give me your name, your address, or email, or anything like that. And so this process needs to happen really fast. It can't take 8 minutes to do or 2 minutes. It's got to send that email out like that, and they get it like that. So they're immediately submitting a ticket from their phone. And then when they submit it, you're showing the ticket screen and it appears over there. And I promise you, when I say this, I promise you, even people like me that's written, I don't know how many lines of code, how many projects I've built out, there's still that childish thing, that inner programmer in us. When we see something like I save a ticket and it appears on the screen, we're like, yeah, baby. Yeah. You know, and though it's a simple insert, it's a simple update, but we still go, yeah, that's cool. It works. You know, all of us are like that. Even the dev managers that are hardcore, like they still like to see things pop on the screen. It works.
Exactly. And think about how they're going to think about you too when you show that, how professional that looks, how prepared you look. That you had this interactive demonstration to give to show. It feels like you've put this massive amount of work into it, and you've had this like really novel and cool idea. Because to be honest, we've not seen this done. No. You've never interviewed anybody that's done this, right? Ever?
No, not yet. Because we're just going to start teaching them in April.
Exactly.
And this is brand new information. No one's done this, and I promise you it will work. I guarantee it'll work, because when we sell software, that's what we do. We try to get them to use it.
Right.
That's just what we do.
Exactly.
And when you sell a car, you try to get them to drive it. You want them to experience the product that they're buying, and they're buying you as a software developer, so they need to experience your software. It's just a natural evolution of what we do. And then now you can do this in like a minute or less. Get them using your software. And the bug tracker, the reason we teach it is because it lends itself to this very technique, where it's like, oh, submit a ticket to me. And I'll show you that appears on the screen, you know. And now I'm going to change the status, and now your ticket status is changed on your phone. That's kind of cool, right? Yeah, it's a standard website. It's a database. I mean, like it's not like that magic.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows how that works in this industry, but like it's still super powerful and super compelling, you know, that you would do that.
Definitely. I love that. So here's one caveat sort of thing to the showing part of this too. Make sure that you know your product and your code forwards, backwards, sideways. You better know everything about it, because if you're going to put it on the screen and show it, you better be ready for a question about any single part of it, not just where you've guided that person to.
Right. Yeah. You need to know everything, how it works.
Yeah. Don't do something that you just wrote yesterday and you threw together and you copied off Stack Overflow and you don't understand how it works. That's a big, because that's going to like kill the entire thing. It's going to look worse than not answering the code trivia question.
Yeah. Now here's how you know you've won, Kevin. When I show my demo and he submitted a ticket to me, and now I'm looking at the ticket that he submitted on my screen, and he asked me the question, how did you do that?
Yeah, there you go.
You have officially won. You really are in the driver's seat at this point, and all you're doing now is you're going to get an offer from this company when they start, and you answer that question. You're like, oh, let me show you how I did that. You have sucked them into your vortex of, you know, and then now they're going to hire you unless you screw up and you don't know your code. But you absolutely should. You spent hours building this thing. You should know how that works. And you've controlled the interview. You've turned it. You've redirected it. You've got them using it, and now it's just time to get down to get an offer. And that's how you win.
That's it.
That's it.
Love it. So those are your sort of 3/4 techniques. Show being the one we're talking about. You know, making sure that they look at your code and then having them interact with your code is that like new killer tip we're talking about.
And I've got one bonus tip too that I do a lot. Let's say that, and this is one thing you can also do, is you can also ask the interviewer questions. Now, a lot of people in our generation now, if you get advice from Twitter, which I think a lot of this in this area is bad, they want you to ask questions. Ask the interviewer, like, what's work-life balance like? You know, how much vacation do I get? You know, do you guys leave at 5:07 or do you leave at 6 o'clock? Or, you know, all of these kind of.
Now, those are all valid questions, but they're valid questions for your recruiter or the HR person, not the hiring manager. He doesn't care.
No, he doesn't care. I just need to know if you can code, man. Are you already worried about your vacation? Haven't even started her yet. Like, so I don't think those are valid questions. Here's the best question that you can ask an interviewer. It's not about the 401k. It's not about the insurance plan. You ask them this: what are you working on? What types of apps in your day-to-day do you build? And what you're trying to do is get that dev manager and that tech lead talking about work, what they do most of the time, or their waking moments of their lives. And people love to talk about work, especially coders. We love talking about what we're building, what we're doing. And if you can get them talking about work, and just chime in like, man, that's amazing. I would love to work there. That's really cool. That is a powerful thing because suddenly now you're in the club with them. You're in the inner circle, and you guys are work buddies now. You're talking about work, and it just establishes you as someone that's easy to get along with and interested in someone else. So it's like going on a date, Kevin. If you never ask them about them and you just talk about you, it's really hard to get that second date. You got to ask them about themselves.
You've got to. It comes back to something kind of we talked about at the beginning, and it's showing interest. It's showing that you're interested in what they're doing, and having them and showing that interest will spur them into, and the way you ask those questions will spur them into talking about what they're working on. And you're right. You've told a personal story about this before, where this happened to you personally. It's the exact same thing. Like talking about thing, and they talked about a thing for an hour, and you walked out, and they're like, this guy's got the job. Like you didn't even talk about, you didn't ask any questions, you didn't answer any questions.
They didn't ask me a question. Yeah, like so the thing is, I went in there, and my first question was, hey man, I'd love to work here. I think it's amazing what you're doing. Tell me a little bit about the project you're working on. And these two dudes talked about work for 45 minutes. And I just sat there like this, man, that's cool. I would love to do that. That's amazing. That sounds like a really good challenge. I'd like to be there. And I was just like color commentating like I was watching a football game, like I was a sportscaster for it. And I walk out of there, and the recruiter called me like almost like within 10 or 15 minutes and says, you got the job. What did you say in there? I'm like, nothing. I didn't say a word. I just asked them about work. And then I realized right away that showing interest in the job is a powerful tool that can't be underestimated.
It is, because it's that like there's that social group thing. Is like, oh, he's one of us. Like he'll fit in or she'll fit in. It's like oh, we're just talking about like just work stuff now. Like clearly he can work here. Like he can interact with us on that same level. And that's what we want day to day. So of course he's going to get the job.
I mean, it's like being at your local bar or a local party, and Kevin, and someone asks you about English football.
Right.
You may not know that person from Adam, but if they knew about the team that you liked, and y'all suddenly started talking about it, immediately you're going to walk away and go, I like that guy.
Oh, yeah, it's happened to me a bunch. Yeah. It's happened to me a bunch. If I go out somewhere and I'll go somewhere and I'll see somebody wearing a shirt, and it generally doesn't matter which Premier League shirt they're wearing, I'll be like, oh, like Spurs fan or whatever, or they'll be like, oh, Liverpool fan, cool. You watch the games? Be like, and that's it. Like we'll talk about football for like an hour.
Yeah.
And Amy's over here bored.
Man. I was in a comic book store. I still finger at comic book stores every now and then. And I was walking out of a comic book store, and I was wearing a Raiders shirt. And the guy was walking in, and he said, Raider Nation. I went, Raider Nation for life. And then we sat there and talked about the Raiders for like 5 minutes. I had no idea who this guy was,
Yeah.
Kelly said, who is that? I said, I don't know, but I like him. He's a Raiders fan.
Yeah, there are tribes, and you sort of belong to one of these tribes, right? I think there is a book written about this, and I forget the name of the book, but there is a book written about this with tribes and sort of social groups of people, and it's like, it's like fellow Star Wars fans. You can just chat with them about Star Wars stuff, and it's like it's the same kind of thing with developers. Developers like to talk to developers. I mean, you guys are here talking amongst yourself too, talking to us. And it's the same kind of thing. You're part of this tribe, right? This little Coder Foundry YouTube tribe we have. It's the same kind of thing. You feel connections with people that way, and that's what you want to leverage.
All right, cool. Well, we got a few minutes here. Do we want to ask any questions? And
let's do some Q&A. I've queued a few questions of you guys up. You can ask anything at this point. If it's on topic, great. If not, we'll try and get to as many as we can.
You can always super chat us if you have.
You can always super chat us too. Yeah,
need to be answered. We'll try our best to get to any super chat question.
One thing first too, though, what do we have here now? We have 82 people here right now and only 40 likes. So if you could like the video, I would very much appreciate it. I would really appreciate it if you went and liked it. I would love that.
Yeah,
that would be great. Okay, so let's do some questions here.
All right, cool.
I'm just going to go up these in the order that you guys put them in. So. Sudipto, what is your take on coder versus programmer? Transitioning from a startup-centric to a large-scale project.
I don't think there's that much difference in my opinion. I mean, like some startups can be exceptionally large projects. I've started my own startup, obviously built a fraud system from nothing to, where it had 50,000 current customers, 500 banks nationwide, sold it in 2018. And so I've been there, but that system ended up being super large. So I don't think there's a much that big of a difference. I think if you go to a larger scale company, there may be process involved that you may have to get used to, which is like meetings or stand-ups or things like that, where you don't code as much as you do in a startup, because that's the only thing they do is code. There's no one to meet with but you and the founder, maybe, you know. So like I think that could be, I think culture could be different. For the work though, the work's kind of the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I agree. Culture's going to be the difference.
Bigger. I mean, you may be on 8 projects or something like that at a large scale company, but when it comes down to your day to day, it's kind of the same. You're still coding. So I don't think you should worry about that as much.
Yep.
Hope that helps.
Culture's going to be the biggest thing there. You're right. It's going to be more meetings, no matter where you go. It's with a large company, you're going to have more meetings. That's what's going to happen. You're going to spend half your time in meetings. Ask anybody who's been in a large company in any capacity on any level. It's always meetings. Always meetings.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to share. So, okay.
Yeah.
Mohammed, I saw you put this in chat a couple of times, but I got it the first time, so don't worry. We're definitely gonna talk about this. So Mohammed wants to know what do we do if we don't know the answer to the question in an interview?
So I'm hoping that one of the techniques that I use is I carry a book with me everywhere I go, like one of these journals, and I would write that question down, and I try to get them to rephrase it. But if you don't know the answer, you just tell them you don't know the answer. The worst thing you can do is try to make up an answer, because that'll make you look like an idiot. That'll definitely not get you fired or not get you hired. It's going to get you out of there quicker than everything. And then go study that answer for your next interview.
Yeah, it's kind of okay not to know it, because you'll only not know it once, right? If you've prepped enough.
You may be good. Here's the next level thing that you could try to do, Mohammed, is I would, if someone asked me a critical question that I didn't know the answer to, I would research that question. And this is why you write it down. I would research that question. I would get the answer. And then I would email or send a code snippet back to that interviewer. And this has to be done either same day.
Same day. It's got to, unless it's late in the day, same day.
6 p.m. You know, maybe you have a night interview, but like within like as quick as you possibly can, same day, and say, hey, I was rethinking about that, and I don't know why I blanked, but here's my answer, and here's a little code snippet of how it works. I have seen people turn no's into yeses by doing that. You know, fail at a whiteboard interview, send back a working piece in code the next day, and get a job. So, I mean, it does work. So that's the other thing you can do. Make sure you write it down, though, so you remember what it is.
Yep, because again, you'll only answer that question incorrectly once. Your goal is to never, ever answer that question wrong again. You're going to remember that, and you're going to have a good example for it going forward. But again, also, if you've done your prep, chances are the chances of them asking you a question that you haven't prepped for is going to be way smaller, because you already know the kind of things that are going to come up. So there's that part of it.
And if you can redirect them to your demo by the third question, you limit the question pool they're going to pick from.
Yep, because the question pool they're going to pick from too, they're probably not going to. It's like, think of it as being like, you know, the quiz shows where the questions get harder as you go along the thing. It's kind of like that too, right? The questions are going to kind of get harder as you go along. So, the Lee, thank you for the super chat. I'll get to yours in a second.
Amazing, got the Stormtrooper up.
I'll get to your question in a second, Lee. But so the questions kind of get harder as you go along. So if you're only doing the first kind of 3 in the book, you're getting like the easy one, the medium, and a couple of medium questions, right? You're not going to go to the hard ones. Right. You may skip past the hard ones that you're not going to know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great point. Great point.
Cool. All right, so who super chatted us up here, Kevin? Who was that?
Okay, let me pull it up here. This is the Lee. Thanks for the question, the Lee. And thanks for the super chat. Right. It says, I'm expected to graduate this spring. A master's in comp sci. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Okay, nice.
I'm currently working on a Python Django project. But other than studying data structures and algorithms, the rest hasn't come in yet.
Okay.
Hold on. The rest of the
what
chat.
What else do I do? I think
I'm guessing. What else? Yeah.
What else do I do?
Yeah. YouTube might have cut it off, but what else does need to know?
So data structure algorithms is great. I think you're doing a great thing by working on that project. What you need to do now is, if you're going to interview for Python to Django jobs, which I think you should look at the top 20 interview questions that you could get asked during a Python interview and try to relate them to specific things and things you solved in your project with Django. You know, So I think that's what you do, and then try to demo your project or projects during those interviews. So, and you may not have to answer a crazy algorithm question that way, or some kind of harder data structure question. You know, the other thing that you can do is take those algorithms that you're doing and turn those into smaller apps, and maybe demonstrate those on your portfolio as well. So, for example, let's say that you get an algorithm, and I'm just going to use a very simple one. There may be harder ones that you're working on, but like reverse a string. Build a reverse a string app that you can just type in any word and it'll reverse it, and maybe check it to see if it's a palindrome. Is one thing that we do. We build Fizz Buzz. We build other ones as well, so that you could demonstrate an algorithm with an app, and that's kind of cool, you know. So I think that's the other thing you could do. I hope that helps.
Cool. And thank you for the super chat, Lee. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And put all those apps on your portfolio. Make sure that the people can play with them and use them.
There's a tip for you from Scott. It's a good tip. Test your screen sharing setup if you're interviewing remote. Yes. Actually, there's more than that too. It's actually further than that. It's test everything before. Test your camera, test your microphone. Make sure, and when I say test it, I mean literally have somebody else on the other end testing it. Don't rely on what you see, because you may, like, your microphone might be peaking, or you may, like, you just don't hear like how like quiet you are maybe, or something, or your screen's juddery on the other end for some weird reason. Like, just get a family member or something and jump on the platform and test it out. So just to tell you, like, okay, so Bobby did a talk last night on a new piece of software we hadn't used before. Right before we jumped on to make sure that it worked. Like, it's a similar kind of thing. So we still do it today, even on the job. It's testing your testing your technology.
Using, Google Meet, and if you know this, if they're using Google Meet or Zoom or Teams or I don't know, WebEx or Skype, like the boomer one. But like, here's the problem: you got on Google Meet and it didn't recognize your DSLR camera. So you've got this
it didn't.
This crazy setups that we use.
Yeah,
I can safely say this: we're pros at doing online meetings. We're pros at being on YouTube and on live and stuff. Like, we know what we're doing, but we also know that when you get a brand new piece of software, your camera may not work, your mic may not work, and if that's the case, then you've got to make adjustments, and it's hard to do that. The worst thing that happens in an interview is like they come on and you get on and you're fiddling with your camera trying to get it to recognize, and it's not your fault.
Yeah,
and they don't blame you consciously. But
subconsciously, they totally do. Yeah, 100% they do. It leaves it's a negative feeling they won't even realize is there in the back of their mind. It just can't get his camera.
It's not your fault, but
Yeah.
Like, and so what you had to do to get on the Google Meetup was just change your camera.
Yeah. I couldn't. My Google Meter would not recognize my capture card. Even this does. Every other piece of software does. Google Meter would not recognize my capture card. I just could not get it to work. I mean, thankfully, I wasn't the one presenting, so it wasn't such a big deal. But had I been, I would have had to try and fix it and figure it out and whatever. But I just turned my camera off. But that's not an option in it. That's not an option in an interview. It's not. You don't want to be that guy either. Be like, oh, my camera's not working. Right. It's the worst. Again, they may not consciously blame you, but they will. It'll be a ding against you whether you think it is or not.
Yeah, and if you're interviewing, make sure, the other thing I would say is make sure your mic is good.
Yeah.
So like the worst thing, bad video is bad audio is the worst.
Oh,
they can't hear you at all.
I literally use this tip all the time on Twitter when I'm talking about YouTube, and it is, you can get by with terrible video, and it can literally be terrible. It can just be bad. It can be mediocre. It can be bad if the audio is good. You can have pristine 4K, 8K video. If the audio is bad, forget it. People will not watch it. It is just bad. Exactly. Invest in audio solutions. Here's one tip I would give you. These things, the audio on them, when you're using them to speak through, is not very good. They're great for listening to music, but they sound terrible as a microphone.
Yep.
So if you're interviewing with these things, they just don't sound good. I would just, if I was going for an interview today, I would just use my phone and the microphone on my phone. I would just talk into it like this. If I could. If it was a phone call or if it was a web thing, I wouldn't use these. It's something to do with the Bluetooth. It's just not good. Hopefully the next version's better.
And then the cheap mic that you can get that's really great is, you can go look at the Snowball from Blue. So if you want to buy a mic solution, you want to invest in that, you don't have to get a Rode or anything like that we use, Procasters or whatever. But like you can get a Snowball, and it'll work fantastic. I think they're $59 or
exactly. And I think I think they are $49-$59. They're good. There's a step up from that, the Yeti, which I think is like $100.
You don't need that necessarily, but the Blue Snowball would be great.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, cool.
But great tip, Scott. Yeah, great tip. Let me see. Turk says, I'm a Java developer, 4 years experience. We talked about this a little bit. Can I get a job in Google? I only write code on JavaScript and Java.
The answer is, I don't know if you can. I'm not saying you can't. I don't know if you can. What I would say is don't limit yourself to one company. Interview at companies that use your skills and try to do that. Now, I'm not saying don't apply for Google. Do the best thing you do. So if you want to apply for Google, I would say start trying to meet people online in Google that work at Google and try to get the inside track on maybe jobs or know someone, get a recommendation, and try to get in that way. Google also has a boot camp that I think they're doing, similar to the LEAP program inside of Microsoft. You can go that route, and it may be easier. But since you have 4 years of coding experience and you write JavaScript and Java, and if they're looking for those skills, it seems like you should be able to get in there. Look at the Google interview process. I know they're the ones that everyone drives us around. All these books and everything is basically centered around the Google interview process.
Yep, there's books and videos and you can search on YouTube for days.
You should have a shot to get in there. Cool. I hope that helps. I know that's not like very specific, but I hope that helps. Apply and let's see what you can do. But apply everywhere though.
Desiree wants to know how many demo projects do you recommend someone should put on their portfolio website?
Oh yeah. So typically we build 3 here at Coder Foundry, and then we have 6 smaller ones that I wouldn't call they're not main projects, they're more like front end projects. We have 3 main projects that we build. So I would shoot for 3, but you're going to demo 1. Absolutely. There's the other one that will make you stand out. And I know it's kind of crazy. Watch our video on the one coding project to get you a job. It's called a bug tracker. The reason we recommend a bug tracker is it demonstrates security. It demonstrates the use of a database. It solves a business problem. And that problem is easily understood by the people you're interviewing with. In other words, that hiring manager absolutely uses Jira or some kind of issue tracking software. And if he doesn't or she doesn't use one, then you're showing them something they absolutely need to have in their business. And we've had people that said, "Can we use the bug tracker when you work here?"
Right.
So,
yes. They're like, "Yeah, can we kind of like can we use your software?" Like, "Yes, you can. Just hire me."
Just hire me and you can use it. Yeah.
So and they did.
I think. Yeah, and they did. I think that's how it works. So hopefully that helps.
Adreek is a senior CS major and CS tutor. Awesome.
Okay. Nice.
Will this hurt me when I look for a job? I got arrested for a misdemeanor marijuana back in August. I was able to have the charge changed to disorderly conduct.
Okay. Depending on where you live, let's talk about the U.S. job market because that's what I know about. If they do a background check, that disorderly conduct typically won't show. They typically look for felonies. So it typically won't show for disorderly conduct.
It's going to depend on the company too, right?
Yeah. What's that?
It's going to depend on the company too, right? If it's a bank, it may hurt you.
If it shows on your background
check. If it shows, right.
So
right. But
background checks typically is 7 years of felonies and misdemeanors won't show.
Right.
A DUI will show if you're, that will show sometimes, but misdemeanor marijuana or disorderly conduct probably wouldn't show up on a background check. The second thing is, man, you don't have to bring up all your warts and failures. More people get DUIs than you would possibly imagine because I've interviewed and get background checks done. It seems like, everyone makes a mistake. And so I wouldn't worry about that too much. And they may not even see it. I wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't be kind of proactive about it. Let them sort of discover it and ask you about it if they need to.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where you have to disclose it.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin Edmond has a question. What is expected of me during the first 60 or 90 days? I think this is related to a point we were making earlier, but the question is, what as a new developer, what are you going to be doing in the first 60 or 90 days?
Okay, I think what you want to do is...
question he's asking. Oh, no, this is a question he's asking in an interview. I see now. He's saying the suggestion is, the question to the interviewer is, what is expected of me during the first 60 or 90 days? I think that's a great question. It's
pretty good. So the thing is, I would catch it as, I'm going to try to hit the ground running. I want to understand your code base, and I'm going to fix issues and try to get involved in the team and understand the business as much as possible in the next 60 to 90 days and provide as much value as I possibly can. And so that way you're not asking the interviewer what his expectations are. You can kind of tell him what you think you can do. This is what I can do in 60 to 90 days. I think I can hit the ground running. I think I can learn what you're doing. If you assign me tickets and bugs, I'm going to put in the time and effort necessary to be able to add value right away. That's how I'd answer that question, instead of asking an open-ended question to the interviewer who's going to tell you that you need to add value in the next 60 days. It's like, yes, I can do that. So anyway, hope that helps.
Right. Okay, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I've got time for a couple more here. Let's do this one next. Code J says, is it all right to talk about Stack Overflow during the interview?
Everyone uses Stack Overflow. Sure.
Yeah. And I see you say ha at the end, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it kind of is.
Everyone uses it.
Yeah.
It's the number one place that we all Google for stuff. And then we say Google loosely. We should call it Stack Overflowing.
Stack Overflow.
But
right.
We're on Stack Overflow every single day. Every programmer that's working for a living is on it every day. Everyone uses it. It's not an embarrassment.
Not at all. Not at all. Before we do our last couple things here, what do we have here now? We have like 80 people here and 57 likes. If you could give us a like if you haven't already, I would really, really appreciate it. It helps us, helps the video. We're trying to get. You
may help someone else learn how to interview and get a job, so feel like you're adding value to the society here.
Exactly. So. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me see.
A couple more for the road here. It's taco time, man.
It is. I'm trying to pick just a couple here.
Okay,
let me see this one. Nico says, I had a technical interview yesterday for Globant. .NET and OOP questions. This is pure gold, Nico from Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Shame it wasn't like tomorrow though, Nico, because then you could have taken the techniques in. But come back and let us know how that
So I guarantee you, I asked him what OOP was. What's the 4 pillars of OOP? We got a super chat. All right. Thanks,
Tech Rally getting back on the board. What's he asking here? Kevin, no free for an interview for my Sharing Developer Stories series. When I mean Kevin, I mean boy. Yes.
I would love to be on the channel, man. Anytime, just send me a link and Kevin will set it up. I'd love to be on it.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
Okay.
It's kind of cool. Love to be on there.
One more here. Next top of the hour. Hide Above C says, this might seem dumb. Never dumb. But I have to ask because it confuses me sometimes. What are the tech stacks out there, and what languages, aspects, etc. define them?
Okay, there's a lot of these things out there, and a lot of them have fancy names. Let's start with the one.
Generally acronyms, right?
Yeah, they're acronyms like MERN. But .NET is a stack in of itself, but .NET is a broad thing. But let's just talk about web development. That is really ASP.NET, and it has C#. Is the main language that you use to build full stack web applications around it. Then you have the JavaScript frameworks or stacks. And those a lot of times are React and like Mongo. I think that's what they loosely call MERN. And then there's just a lot of those out there. So just look up the different stacks and you can see kind of what languages and databases comprise all those things. It's not super important to know what all of those are or what all the acronyms mean. What is important is to know which one you're using and which one you're building with, and then interview for jobs that match up there.
Yep. So it's important to find out which one's popular, because that's also how you're going to kind of search for it too, right?
Yeah.
Because you may see jobs posted in, they may not say C#. The job posting might just be like ASP.NET, and it's sort of implied C# and HTML and CSS and all the rest parts of the stack. So understanding the stacks and what you're working in, and then how to search for them on the job market is kind of important.
Right. But typically you have .NET, Java, you have JavaScript stacks, and that's in JavaScript. That could be React, that can be Angular. And then you have the flavors of databases, SQL, Oracle, Mongo, Postgres. There's a lot of different things out there. And then there's some other smaller stacks like Django, Laravel, LAMP, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of them out there. Just know which one you're using.
I'm sure you can Google just tech stacks too, and there'll be a list somewhere. There's probably a Wikipedia article on it that's like as long as your arm. Okay, cool. So, let's wrap up here. We are going to be back on Tuesday. We'll do a Q&A portion again. I know I had a few questions that we didn't get to today. Come back on Tuesday. We'll do that too. We'll have a whole new topic we'll talk about on Tuesday. I think it's going to be kind of our new format for this too. We're going to do sort of, bring value to you guys, and then allow you to ask questions about that stuff too, rather than just doing total Q&A with you guys.
Right.
So, yeah. What do we have? What do we have coming up? We have an open house next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, actually. Yeah, next Tuesday evening.
Yeah,
March 2nd. So if you're interested in the boot camp side of things with us, you can go register for that.
Oh man, we got one for the road. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you.
There's no question. Everybody sends money. We appreciate it, Gibbon. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. No question. He doesn't have a question, Kevin?
He doesn't. No, just a super chat. So thank you. We appreciate it. So next Tuesday you can go register for that. You can go check out our Twitter account. You can register. The link's on there. You can register there. Actually, I will also put it on the website too. It'll be at the banner at the top. I need to add that for next Tuesday. If you're interested in the bootcamp side of things, go do that, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Oh, he does have a question actually. Let me see. He's done an e-commerce project by copying Udemy course that will interview and know about it, but I have mostly got a call from startup company in India. Why? Which is the best site to search for a company? Looks like you've built an app based on a Udemy course, but you're only getting callbacks from startup companies, and you want to work for a larger company, is my guess.
So they're not going to know. Will they know? Oh, you're saying that
they know that it's from a Udemy course. So if you built code camps, trust me, they know it's from a Udemy course.
All right. So let's say that your one project is you built it and you just straight up copied it. Okay. So what I want to say is that's probably not good enough to work. What you need to do is make sure that thing is different enough from the course that you did at Udemy, the Udemy course. Maybe change the way it looks, way it operates, add a new feature. But if you built it by copying it, make sure that you understand the code, every line of code that you built and how that it works, in order for you to be able to demo that and explain how it works, and then you can turn it into an interview. But you can also take that e-commerce site and then branch it off into something new based on what you learned how to do in that Udemy course and build something different. That's the other thing you can do.
That's our top tip in that point too, is build something original based on the skills that you've learned.
And what I want to highlight here is, and I'm not saying he's doing this, I'm saying you can't fake this. You can't fake it till you make it. You can't build a copy a project from just download a repo, get it compiled, and then show it off as your own work and expect to get hired. It's not that easy.
You're gonna fail at the first question. You're literally you're not gonna fail at the first question, and then they're gonna know, and then that's gonna look really bad, and now you just seem dishonest.
Yeah. So just make sure that it's not that we don't learn from these courses. We do. We learn from a boot camp. We learn from a course. We learn from wherever. But make sure you understand how that works, and I think it'll help you in the interview for sure. All right. Hope that helps.
There you go. Cool. Just want to say before we wrap up, thank you for all the super chats today. We super appreciate it. We'll be back on Tuesday. You guys can ask a bunch more questions when we'll be here with a whole new topic.
All right. See you Tuesday, guys. Keep coding.